Guys, welcome to my channel. So now we're going to learn how to sew this trendy skirt. So let's get started. Now the items we'll be needing, or the materials we'll be needing, are 2 yards of Ankara fabric, 2 yards of lining, tape measure, zip, scissors, pins, your rule, and a marker, whether a chalk or any marking tool will do. So the next thing we are going to do is we're going to be dividing our hip circumference into two. So our hip circumference was 42.5, which is 21.25. So the 21.25, I added another quarter inch to it to make it 21.5. So after that, I added a 2 inches of zipper allowance, which gave me 23.5, plus my 5 inches of allowance, so which altogether gave us 27.5 inches. So after that, place your hand at where the 27.5 reached, then fold it into two, as you can see in the video. Fold it into two, then place it on the table, then use a pin to hold where the 27.5, or where the measurement stopped. So if you don't understand, you can see it in the video. So now this is how it looks after being arranged well, as you can see in the video. So the next step we are going to do is we are going to be measuring the skirt length. So to get the skirt length, our skirt is going to be having a 2 inches of band on top at the waist side. So we place our tape measure of 1.5 inches on where we are going to sew. Then we are going to measure our skirt length. Our skirt length is 20 inches, but we'll be making it 20.5, the half inches for stitching. Then we'll be adding an allowance of 2 inches, okay, so which made it 22.5. So after that, you remove the tape measure and place it at where the starting point of the dress is. Then measure where the 20 and the 22.5 inches reached. So that's how we're going to be getting our real and final measurement for the skirt length. So as you can see, I've marked it. So after marking it all around, I used my rule or straight ruler to draw the lines to connect. So after connecting, then you cut. This is the skirt after cutting. So the next step we are going to do is we are going to be cutting the lining piece for the skirt. So to get the measurement for the lining piece of the skirt, we are going to be placing 1.5 inches above the waistline. Then pull the hem of the skirt down, or the downwards part of the skirt, to our desired length, which is 20.5 inches. So after getting our 20.5 inches, we will use our pin to hold the hem. So after that, place your tape measure at the waistline, then measure it downwards at the hemline as where I've pointed. That's the measurement we'll be using to cut our lining piece, the length of our lining piece, which gave us 17.5 inches. So now this is how we are going to be cutting our lining piece the easiest way. So we'll be removing the pins from the Ankara fabric. As you can see, it's folded into two. So we are going to be placing the starting point of the Ankara fabric to the starting point of the lining. Then we are going to be stretching out from the Ankara print to the lining piece where they both reach. So after doing that, we'll be folding it into two as we folded the Ankara print into two. So if you don't understand something, please watch the video. After doing that, we use our pin to hold it and remove the Ankara print from the lining. Then arrange the lining piece as we arranged the Ankara print before cutting. So use your pin to hold the lining, but this one has been folded into two again to make it 4. so to make it easy to cut our lining piece. So as you can see, I'm arranging the lining pieces in order to prevent it from shifting, to decrease our measurement. So arrange your lining pieces correctly and use your pin to hold it firm before cutting your lining piece. This method can be used for cutting a dress or anything you want. So the next thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be measuring our 17.5 inches that we got from the length of the lining piece. We're going to be placing it at the top or the starting point of the lining piece on top. Then we'll be going downwards to measure our 17.5 inches. So after marking the 17.5 inches, we use our rule to draw a straight line to connect the marks. So after connecting the marks, then we use our scissors to cut the line and cut it all through. So after that, remove the pins from it. So after removing the pins, place the Ankara fabric, the skirt part, place the right side facing the line, then use your pin to hold it and pin it all around straight. Okay, so if you don't understand something, please watch the video. After pinning it, we are going to the sewing machine to stitch half of an inch. Then we'll be back. So now this is it after stitching that half of an inch. So the next thing we will be doing is we will pull the lining up to the waist point to meet the waistline. Then we will stitch half of an inch at the side where the zipper allowance is, so or the zipper line is. So look at how I am doing it. We will be repeating the same procedure for the other side too. So now the next step is we will be stitching it on the sewing machine. We will stitch it half of an inch. So now this is how it looks after stitching. So the next step we'll be doing is we're going to be turning it over to the right side and iron the side or where we sew. We're going to be ironing it at the right side. After pressing it or ironing it for the side or the zipper line, that's how it looks. So the next thing we're going to do is we'll be pulling the lining at the waist side for it to be equal with the fabric. Then we will be stitching it. So we will use our pins to hold it, then we stitch it. So this is how it looks after stitching and using the iron to iron or press it. So the next thing we'll be doing is to snatch our dart for the back of the skirt. So the next thing we're going to do is we'll be use pins to hold our zipper line, then measure 1 inch for the zipper line. Then use our rule to make a straight line out of it. So the next thing is we'll be going to our sewing machine to stitch it. So now the next thing we'll be doing is placing 1.5 inches above or on the waist point, then measuring our waist to hip. Our waist to hip measurement is 9 inches plus our underbutt measurement, which is 13.5 inches. So the next thing we'll be doing is measuring our dart interval. Our dart interval is 3.5 I used my tip to tip measurement for it. 3.5 for the hip, 3.5 for the waist, 3.5 for the hemline, and 3.5 for the butt line, underbutt line. So after that, we are going to be inserting all setting the pins at all the marked places where we marked our dart, and turn it over to the other side of the skirt and mark it too. That's how we'll be getting our dart for the other part of the skirt too. So hold the hem point and the waist point together, then press it. Then after pressing it straight with your hands, you go in by 1 inches at the waist dart, half inches at the hip dart, 1 inches at the underpart line, and 1 inches at the hemline. Then use your pins to hold it. Then connect all the lines. Then repeat the same procedure for the other side of the dart. Stitch it with the sewing machine. Now this is how it looks after stitching it and pressing it. The next step is to let the front midpoint and the back midpoint to meet on the right side. Then press it with an iron to lay it flat on both sides. If you don't understand, please look at the video. So now this is how it looks after pressing. So the next step we are going to be doing is to measure the length of the skirt without the band. Then add 4 inches to it. Then on the midpoint of the waistline, measure your dart circumference, which our dart circumference was 7.5. Then mark it, and also measure half of your waist measurement. Then also mark it too. Mark 1 inches at where our dart ended at the left side. Okay. The next step is to measure the rest of your cloth to see if it reaches your desired measurement. Then place it an inch forward to the left front side where we marked our 1 inch. Then measure to get the length of it towards the side of the skirt. Then use that measurement to cut. The next step is to place the cut cloth on the right waist part of the skirt as shown in the. Then measure 4.5 inches downwards on the left side where the 1 inch allowance is. Then on the right side of the waist, mark where the waist measurement ended. Then use your hand to draw your desired shape from the waist point towards where the 4.5 inches ended. Then cut it. Then come downwards to the hem of the skirt and mark 4.5 inches there too. Then connect it from where the 4.5 inches at the waistline ended and cut. Then on the waistline, slant in the waistline allowance to your shaped curve. Then measure 1 inch on the right side of the skirt length downwards to get the slope of the hem. Then cut it. Then at this point, go in by 1 inch again. Then join the slope. Now the next step is to cut the lining piece for the drafted cloth. Now to cut the lining piece, place the cloth on the lining, then cut it exactly as the cloth is. Now place the right side of the cloth on the lining as seen on the video. Then hold it with pins and place the fabric interface on it, then press it. So guys, this is how it looks after using the iron to press it. The next part is to stitch at the top of the fabric. So after stitching, you nip it all through at where you stitched. Then go to your sewing machine and top stitch it. So now this is how it looks after top stitching. The next step is to turn it over at the wrong side, then go to the ironing board to press it. Now this is how it looks after pressing it. The next step is to sew the hemline. So you use your pins to hold it, then cut the excess lining allowance at the hemline. Then go to your sewing machine and stitch it about 1/2 inch. So after stitching it, you repeat the procedure as to how we did the top of this pattern. You repeat the same procedure to the downwards or the hem part of this pattern. So now this is how it looks after stitching and pressing it. So now this part is the side of the pattern and the other side is the shaped place where we will be stitching. So we are going to be stitching about 1/2 inch, but we will be stitching it on the lining place where the fabric interfaces. This is how it looks after stitching and pressing. The next is to hold it with pins and cut the excess line. So now place it 1/2 inch at the right waist part of the skirt and hold it with pins. So now stitch on the patterned fabric that we sew from this point all the way to the end or the hemline of the skirt. Stitch it for about 1/4 inch. So now this is how it looks after stitching and pressing it on the iron. So the next part we are going to be doing is to turn it over to the wrong side of the skirt and we will be adding in our measurements. So guys, thank you for watching the part 1 of this tutorial. Meet you in the part 2. Bye.